The sky is ripping open!
Look out! The bus is coming down!
Somebody help us!
Musitafu looked normal for a few seconds. The sky was blue. The streets were busy. A hero patrol drone hummed past a billboard that said, "Be a hero. Be safe." Then the air made a sound like glass trying not to break. Shota Aizawa felt it first. He did not need a quirk sense for it. He just had years of habit. When something was wrong, his body knew before his brain finished the thought. He was on a rooftop, scarf loose around his neck, looking down at a crowded main street. He had just stopped a petty thief 2 blocks away. Now his eyes went up. A thin line opened in the sky. Not a crack in a building, not smoke, not a cloud. A line. It widened into a tear, like the world was being pulled apart by invisible hands. Wind snapped signs and made people grab their hats. Cars drifted a little in their lanes. Some civilians screamed and pointed. Others lifted phones right away, because in this city, even danger became a clip. Aizawa moved without thinking. He ran to the edge of the roof and snapped his goggles down. Something fell out of the tier. A man. Not tumbling like a normal person, not flailing. He fell like a heavy stone for half a second. Then he stopped. He stopped in midair like gravity had changed its mind. The man hovered above the street. Blue suit, red cape, a symbol on his chest that Aizawa did not recognize. His hair was black and neat. His face was calm, but his eyes moved fast, taking in everything at once. Civilians below gasped. A bus swerved. A delivery truck hit the curb. A streetlight shook loose from the sudden wind and started to fall. The flying man moved. Aizawa's eyes tracked him for a heartbeat, then lost him. He was there, then he was not, then he was there again, under the falling streetlight, holding it like it weighed nothing. He set it down gently. He did not crush the sidewalk. He did not even crack the concrete. Then the bus tipped, its front wheels lifting as it skidded toward a line of parked cars. The man caught the bus. Not with a loud slam, not like a crash. He braced it with one hand on the roof and one under the front, like he was steadying a table someone bumped into. The bus rocked, then settled back on all 4 wheels. People inside screamed, then stared, eyes wide, as the bus stopped moving. Aizawa felt his mouth go dry. This was not a quirk, he understood. The tear in the sky rippled again. A second figure dropped out. This one did not stop in midair. This one fell hard and fast, but not out of control. A dark shape shot a line to the side of a building. The line pulled tight. The figure swung, hit a wall, ran 2 steps straight down like the wall was a floor, and landed on a rooftop with a soft, practiced roll. Black cape, black armor, a cowl with pointed ears, wide eye slits that did not show the real eyes. And then, nothing. The dark figure disappeared into the roof shadows like he had never been there. Aizawa's instinct screamed louder at that than at the flying man. Down on the street, the flying man looked at the crowd, and his voice carried without a speaker. "Everyone please move back," he said, calm and clear. "Give space. We're going to keep you safe." He did not sound like he was asking for praise. He sounded like he was giving an instruction because it was the right thing to do. A small group of low-level villains picked the worst possible time to try their luck. 2 of them had been hiding near an alley, waiting for panic. One had a quirk that shot sticky cords from his hands. Another had a metal arm that could stretch and slam. They rushed toward a jewelry store, using the crowd as cover. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. He was about to drop in. The flying man was already there. 1 second the villains were running. The next second they were on the ground, wrists held in gentle but unbreakable grips. Their weapons were gone. Their masks were pulled off. Their cords were tied around their own ankles. The flying man did not punch them. He did not even look angry. He just said no. Aizawa landed in the street a moment later, scarf ready, eyes hard. He stared at the man in blue. The man turned and met his gaze. Aizawa did what he always did when he met an unknown power. He tested it. His eyes locked on the flying man. His quirk activated. He watched for the usual sign. A flicker. A stop. A failure. Nothing changed. The man in blue did not drop. His cape did not lose lift. His body did not sag like a quirk had been cut. He just hovered, steady as a statue. Aizawa felt cold creep into his fingers. The crowd behind them started whispering louder. "Erasure didn't work," someone said. "What is he?" another voice hissed. Aizawa kept his face flat, but his mind raced. If this man was not using a quirk, then he was something else. And the shadow on the rooftops, that was something else too. Aizawa spoke, voice low, meant only for the man. "Identify yourself," he said. Now, the man's eyes softened, like he understood the fear in the street. "My name is Clark," he said after a beat. "I'm not your enemy." On a nearby rooftop, hidden behind a ventilation unit, the dark figure watched. Bruce Wayne's eyes moved over the scene the way a scanner moved over a crime scene. Crowd density, police response time, camera angles, hero arrival routes, the scarf weapon, the goggles, the way the heroes kept civilians behind them, not in front. A system, a controlled one, and above all, a public that filmed everything. Bruce's jaw tightened under the cowl. If this world had rules for heroes, then those rules could be used as chains. He watched the man in blue steady the panic like it was a simple job. Clark always did that. And Clark always believed most people would do the right thing if you gave them the chance. Bruce did not share that belief. Not without a plan. Far away, deep in the city's hidden dark, a man with a ruined face listened to a report from a trembling follower. "A flying man," the follower said. "Erasure did nothing." A slow smile formed in the darkness. "Bring me more," All for One said softly. "Bring me truth." Nezu did not meet unknowns in the street. He met them in a room designed for unknowns. The room was clean. The lights were bright but not harsh. The walls had hidden sensors. The chairs were bolted to the floor. The door had more locks than a bank vault. And yet the room did not feel like a prison. It felt like a place where smart people tried to keep everyone alive. Clark stood near the center, hands open at his sides. He kept his posture relaxed on purpose. He did not want to look like a threat. He could hear everything. The soft click of a camera lens, the heartbeat of the tired man with the scarf, the small scratch of a pencil in the hands of a green-haired boy who kept looking up and down like he was afraid to blink and miss something. He could even hear the tiny feet of the principal walking on the other side of the door. The door opened. Nezu walked in. He was small. He looked like a fluffy animal, but his eyes were sharp, and his smile was too calm to be simple. "Welcome," Nezu said. His voice was polite, almost cheerful. "To you, a high school." Clark blinked. "A school?" "A hero's school," Nezu corrected gently. "And a safe place. In most cases." Aizawa leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "We asked for identification." Clark nodded. "I understand." He kept it simple. "I'm not from here. Something pulled me through. I saw people in danger. I helped." Nezu's smile stayed the same. "A good start. We also have questions about what you are." Clark paused. He could tell them everything. Krypton, Kansas, the Daily Planet, the Justice League. But he was in a new world. A world with fear and rules. If he dumped too much at once, he might sound like a liar. So he did what he always did when the situation was tense. He told the truth in clean pieces. "I was born on another planet," Clark said. "My home was destroyed. I was sent away as a baby. A family on a farm raised me. I decided to use what I can do to help people." The green-haired boy's pencil squeaked. He wrote faster. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "So you're an alien." Clark did not flinch. "Yes." Nezu tilted his head. "And your abilities come from?" Clark glanced at the ceiling. "Your sun is similar to mine. The light and energy affect my body. It makes me strong, fast. I can fly. I can see and hear very far. I can use heat from my eyes." He kept his voice steady. "And I try not to hurt anyone." Aizawa's scarf twitched like a living thing. "That is not a quirk," Aizawa said. "No," Clark agreed. Nezu's eyes flicked to a monitor on the wall. "Our sensors also say you have no quirk factor." The boy finally looked up, eyes shining. "That means he whispered, then caught himself, cheeks red. Nezu noticed. "Young Midoriya," he said. "You may speak." The boy straightened like a soldier. "Sorry. It just means he's not using the same power system we understand." That's huge." He looked at Clark like he was staring at a new kind of math. "Mr. Clark, do you have a hero name?" Clark's mouth twitched. He almost said it. Almost. But he stopped. The word had weight. The word came with a world behind it. "I don't think that matters right now," he said carefully. "Right now, people need help." Nezu's smile warmed. "Just a little. You have the heart of a hero. That is valuable here." He tapped a clipboard on the table. "But our society runs on licensing. Even heroes have rules." Clark glanced at the clipboard. "Licensing?" Aizawa spoke flatly. "If you operate without a license, you are a vigilante." Clark did not like that word being aimed at him, but he understood systems. He had worked with governments. He had dealt with fear. "I will respect your laws," he said. "As long as respecting them doesn't mean letting people die." The room went quiet. Nezu's ears twitched. Aizawa's gaze sharpened. It was not a threat, it was a promise. But in a world built on control, a promise like that sounded dangerous. A door at the back opened again. A tall man stepped in. For a moment, Clark's senses focused on him like a camera snapping into place. The man was massive, even though his shoulders looked a little too tense, like he was hiding pain. His smile was wide, but his eyes carried sadness behind the brightness. All Might. Clark did not know his name yet, but he felt the same thing he felt when he stood near the best heroes of his own world. A symbol. All Might looked at Clark and laughed, loud and friendly, like he was trying to cut through the fear. "Young man," All Might said, "you saved many people today." Clark's shoulders loosened a fraction. "I just did what I could." All Might stepped closer. His presence filled the room. "That is exactly what a hero does." From the corner, the green-haired boy looked like he might cry from happiness. Nezu watched all of them, calm as a still pond. "Now," Nezu said, "there is one more matter." He looked toward the ceiling camera. "Someone else came with you." Aizawa's eyes flicked toward the shadows. Clark's hearing reached farther. He caught the faint shift of cloth against air in the ventilation duct. A heartbeat that was slow, controlled, almost too controlled. Bruce was already in the building. Of course he was. Nezu spoke into the empty space. "We can do this politely, or we can do this the hard way. I prefer polite." A pause. Then a dark shape dropped from the ceiling panel like gravity was his friend. The masked man landed without a sound. He straightened, cape falling around him like a curtain. He did not look at All Might first. He did not look at Nezu first. He looked at the exits. He looked at the cameras. Then he looked at Clark. Clark felt a small relief, sharp and strange. He was not alone. All Might's smile faltered just a little. "And you are?" The masked man's voice was rough and steady. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said. "But I'm also not signing anything." Nezu's smile widened. Aizawa sighed like he had been waiting for exactly this headache. "Great." The clipboard slid across the table as if it had been waiting its whole life for this moment. "Paperwork," Nezu said brightly. "A wonderful way to begin." Bruce did not touch the clipboard. Clark did not either. Midoriya, however, leaned forward like it was the most exciting problem in the world. "What should we call you for the forms?" he asked, eyes huge. Bruce's head turned slowly. Even through the wide eye slits, Midoriya felt like he was being measured. "Call me," Bruce began. He almost said nothing. He almost said a lie. Then he glanced at Clark, and Clark gave the smallest shake of his head, like, "Not yet." Bruce exhaled. "Call me Wayne," he said finally, using a name that was true and not true at the same time. "For now." Nezu's pen moved. "Very well, Mr. Clark. Mr. Wayne." All Might watched them both, still smiling, but more careful now. Outside the room, unseen by most, the Hero Public Safety Commission received its first official report. 2 unregistered anomalies. 1 ignored erasure. One infiltrated you. A. Security. In a hidden room far from you, A. All for One received the same report. And he did not laugh this time. He just leaned forward and planned. The first real strike came 3 nights later. It did not come with a warning. It did not come with a villain's speech. It came like a storm that chose a single street. Katsuki Bakugo was asleep when the emergency siren blared in the dorm. Lights flashed. Doors opened. Students poured into the hall, half-dressed and angry. "What now?" Bakugo snapped. Midoriya was already moving, heart racing. "That's not a drill," he said. He could hear teachers shouting orders. Outside, the night sky glowed red. A warehouse district near the river was on fire. Aizawa stood at the front gate with other staff, scarf ready, eyes tired but sharp. "Students, stay back," he ordered. "This is not training." Clark stood beside him, wearing plain clothes A gave him. He still looked like himself. He did not need armor to be dangerous. That was the problem. Bruce stood a step behind, already wearing his suit again. A hated it. He did not care. Nezu spoke through a headset. "We have multiple villain signatures and 1 Nomu-class threat," he said calmly. "Pro-heroes are en route." Aizawa's gaze cut to Clark. "You follow instructions. You do not leave the perimeter unless we say." Clark's jaw tightened. He did not argue. He just nodded once. Bruce's head tilted. "You really think you can contain him with words?" Aizawa did not look at Bruce. "I think I can contain the situation by controlling choices." Bruce's mouth moved like he wanted to say more. Then his comm buzzed with a signal he had planted in the city grid. He had been building a map since day 1. Batman did not wait for permission in a war zone. He waited for the right second. The group launched toward the warehouse district with pro-heroes leading. All Might arrived in his hero form, landing with a shock of air that rattled windows. "Evil shall not win," he boomed, voice bright. Clark looked at him and felt something inside ease again. Not because All Might was stronger than him, because All Might understood what it meant to stand in public and carry people's hope. They reached the district. Flames licked up steel walls. Smoke rolled across the street. Civilians ran. Some were workers. Some were homeless people who slept near the warehouses. Some were just unlucky. A villain with a sound-based quirk screamed into a megaphone, making people clutch their ears and drop. A second villain fired sticky foam across the road, trapping feet and slowing evacuation. And then, the Nomu stepped out of the smoke. It was huge. Its skin was dark and stitched. Its eyes were blank. Its muscles looked like they were built for one job: break things. All Might's smile tightened. Midoriya's breath caught. He had seen Nomu before. He knew what they were made for. Aizawa's voice went cold. Nomu confirmed. Clark's senses sharpened. He heard heartbeats trapped inside the warehouse. At least 20, maybe more. Some were fast and scared. Some were slow and weak. He looked at the burning building. Then he looked at the villains. Then he moved. He was not trying to be fast for show. He was fast because time was the enemy. He shot into the warehouse through a gap in the wall, making sure the broken metal bent outward, away from people. Inside, the heat hit him like a heavy blanket. He could see through smoke. He could hear the trapped workers coughing. He lifted a fallen beam with one hand, slid it aside, and carried 3 people at once to the outside, setting them down gently behind a rescue line. He went back in. Again. Again. To the heroes watching, it was like a rescue team made of lightning. All Might grabbed the Nomu's shoulder and slammed it into the street. The pavement cracked. The Nomu bounced and rose again like it did not feel pain. Aizawa's eyes locked on it. His quirk cut off the villain with the foam. The foam stopped mid-spray and fell like wet paint. The sound villain tried to scream again. Bruce was already behind him. He struck once, clean and fast, hitting a nerve point. The villain's legs folded. The megaphone clattered to the ground. Bruce grabbed it and crushed the battery pack. No more noise weapon. He did not look proud. He just moved on. Hawks arrived overhead, feathers ready, eyes wide as he saw the masked man moving like a ghost. "Who is that?" Hawks muttered into his comm. Endeavor landed in a wave of heat, flames rolling off him. He saw the Nomu and smiled like a man who loved to fight. Then he saw Clark pull a group of civilians out of fire like the fire was nothing. Endeavor's smile turned into a hard line. "Don't get in my way," Endeavor growled. Clark did not even glance at him. He set the last civilian down and turned toward the fight. The Nomu swung at all might. All might blocked. The shockwave still blew out windows across the street. Clark's eyes flashed for a split second. His heat vision cut the shockwave's path by slicing through a metal support beam that was about to fall, redirecting it away from a group of evacuees. He made it look effortless. Aizawa saw it and felt his stomach twist. This man was fighting the battlefield itself. The Nomu lunged again. Clark stepped in. He caught the Nomu's fist. The street went quiet for one strange second. All Might had stopped Nomu before, but it took full power and risk. Clark stopped it like he was stopping a door from slamming. The Nomu pushed. Clark pushed back. The Nomu's feet dug trenches into the pavement. Clark did not move an inch. Endeavor's eyes narrowed, flames licking higher. "That's not possible," he said, like he was angry at reality. Clark turned his head slightly. "It is," he answered simply. Then the real trap showed itself. A purple mist opened behind the Nomu like a doorway. Kurogiri stepped out, calm and polite, wearing his bartender suit even in a war zone. "Good evening," Kurogiri said. And beside him, with hands in his pockets and eyes like dead coals, stood Tomura Shigaraki. Midoriya froze. "All Might," Midoriya whispered. Shigaraki smiled, slow and ugly. "So this is the new thing," he said, looking at Clark like he was looking at a tool. Clark felt something crawl under his skin. Not fear of power, fear of intent. Shigaraki's gaze moved over the crowd, the heroes, the civilians. He did not care about them as people. He cared about what breaking them would do to the world. Aizawa's eyes snapped toward Shigaraki. He stepped forward, quirk ready. Kurogiri's mist swirled. Bruce's head turned sharply. He had not seen a quirk like this up close. A portal made of smoke, perfect for escape, perfect for kidnapping. Clark could hear a new set of heartbeats now. Not in the warehouse. In the street. Small, fast, terrified. He turned and saw it. 3 civilians, teenagers standing too close to the fight, frozen in panic. Each had a small device strapped to their chest, blinking red. Bombs. Not big ones, not city killers. Just enough to make a point. Clark's jaw clenched. Shigaraki noticed Clark noticing. "Save them," Shigaraki said, voice lazy. "Or stop me." All Might's muscles tightened. "You villain," he roared, stepping forward. Shigaraki tilted his head. "I'm not talking to you," he said. "I'm talking to the Flying One. This was why All for One sent them. Not to win, to learn. To see what Clark would do when saving people and stopping evil were not in the same place." Clark did not hesitate. He moved. To anyone else, he vanished. To Aizawa's eyes, it was a blur that didn't make sense. Clark reached the first teen, sliced the strap with a flick of his nail so precise it did not scratch skin, crushed the device in his palm, and moved to the next. In the same breath, he did the third. 3 bombs disabled in less than a second. The teens fell back, shaking, alive. Clark was already back in front of Shigaraki. He did not look angry in a wild way. He looked disappointed. "That's not how you prove anything," Clark said, voice low. Shigaraki's smile widened. "Sure it is." Kurogiri's mist thickened. The Nomu lunged again, not at Clark this time, but at the civilians Clark had just saved, like it had been ordered to force Clark to choose again. Clark's eyes narrowed. He turned his body slightly. He did not punch the Nomu into space. He did not blast it through the city. He stepped into its path and took the hit. The force would have turned a bus into scrap. Clark slid back half a step, boots digging into broken asphalt. The Nomu's arm shook from the impact like it hit steel. Clark grabbed the Nomu's wrist and lifted it off the ground. He held it up with one hand like a heavy bag. All Might stared. Endeavor stared. Hawks forgot to breathe for a second. Aizawa felt a chill in his spine. This was beyond symbols. This was beyond their scale. Bruce did not stare. He watched Shigaraki. He watched Kurogiri. He watched how they reacted. Shigaraki's eyes narrowed, not in fear, in thought. Kurogiri's posture shifted slightly. Protective, ready to pull Shigaraki out the moment the test was complete. Bruce spoke into his calm, voice clipped. They're here for data, not a win. Aizawa's eyes flicked toward Bruce. You sure? Bruce's gaze stayed on Shigaraki. Yes. Shigaraki clicked his fingers like he was bored. Kurogiri opened a mist gate behind the Nomu. Shigaraki took one step back, still smiling at Clark. You're interesting, Shigaraki said. This world is going to love breaking you. Clark's voice stayed steady. Not if we stop you. Shigaraki's smile showed teeth. Try. All Might surged forward. Endeavor's flames roared. Aizawa's eyes locked. Bruce threw a smoke pellet, not to hide himself, but to cut lines of sight and limit Kurogiri's safe exits. Clark moved again, fast and precise, and in that instant he could have ended it. He could have grabbed Shigaraki and flown straight up until the villain couldn't breathe. He could have done 100 things. But he heard the crowd, phones, cameras, and he saw the teens he saved, still shaking. If he made the wrong move, this world would not see hero. It would see alien weapon, and the people who loved control would use that fear forever. So Clark chose the harder path. He chose restraint. He stepped forward, hands open, body between Shigaraki and everyone else, like a wall that refused to be cruel. Bruce saw that choice and understood it. He did not agree with it, but he respected the discipline it took. Kurogiri's mist gate widened. Shigaraki looked at All Might one last time, eyes cold. See you soon, he said. Then he was gone. The Nomu dropped into the portal too, pulled away before Endeavor's flames could fully lock on. The villains vanished like a trick. The fire still burned. The street was torn up. People were alive. But the air felt different now, heavy with a new truth. Hawks landed near Aizawa, eyes sharp. That guy, he said quietly, nodding toward Clark. He's not a quirk user. Aizawa's jaw tightened. No. Endeavor stepped closer, heat rolling off him. He glared at Clark like Clark had stolen something. What are you? Endeavor demanded. Clark met his eyes and did not flinch. Someone who saves people. Endeavor's fist clenched. That's not an answer. All Might stepped between them before it could become a fight. Enough, All Might said. Smile forced but voice strong. He looked at Clark and then at Bruce. Both of you, your actions tonight saved lives. Bruce's cape shifted as he turned his head slightly, listening. Sirens were coming, news drones too. And somewhere in an office full of screens, a commission agent watched the footage and wrote notes. Unlicensed, unregistered, uncontrolled. In a hidden room far away, All for One listened to Shigaraki's report. He stopped the bombs, Shigaraki said, voice flat. He held back. All for One's fingers tapped the arm of his chair. So he has rules. All for One murmured. He smiled. Good. Rules can be used. Back on the street, Clark looked up at the night sky, at the place where the tear had been. It was gone now, but he could feel it in his bones. This world had its own kind of darkness, and now that darkness had seen him clearly, Bruce stepped beside him, voice low, meant only for Clark. They're going to try to turn you into a story, Bruce said. Clark's eyes stayed on the smoke drifting over the rooftops. Then, we make sure it's the right story. Bruce's mouth tightened. Stories don't stay right on their own. The first news drone buzzed overhead. A bright light washed over them, and the whole city got its first clear image of the flying man and the shadow man standing side by side, surrounded by broken street and scared people. Not as legends. Not yet. As problems the world would now argue about. And that argument was about to become its own battlefield. The morning after the warehouse fire, Musutafu woke up angry. Not everyone was angry in the same way. Some people were scared. Some people were excited. Some people were proud. But the city talked with one loud voice, and that voice had a sharp edge. Shota Aizawa watched the news on a small screen in the teacher's room. He did not like watching the news. The news turned people into simple stories. Real life was never simple. On the screen, shaky phone video showed a blur of motion. A man in plain clothes moving too fast to follow. A huge stitched monster being lifted off the ground with one hand. A dark figure dropping a villain without anyone even seeing the strike. The anchor spoke quickly. 2 unidentified individuals involved in last night's incident. One appears to be a non-registered aerial type. The other infiltrated UA grounds earlier this week. Aizawa's jaw tightened. Earlier this week, he muttered. Like we didn't notice. Nezu sat on the table near the screen, small paws folded, eyes bright and calm. They did notice, Nezu said. They are choosing which parts to highlight. Aizawa clicked the remote and muted the TV. The room felt quieter right away. All Might is going to be asked to answer for this, Aizawa said. And so are we. Nezu's ears twitched. Yes, and the commission will want to control the unknowns. Aizawa's eyes slid toward the hallway, toward the secure rooms. Clark and Wayne. 2 names that were true, but not complete. Aizawa did not like incomplete things. He stood and walked to the observation window. On the other side, Clark sat at a table with a cup of tea that he did not need, because he never needed warmth. He held it anyway, like he was trying to fit into the shape of a normal day. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes were not. His eyes kept tracking small sounds outside the room. Wayne was not sitting. Wayne never sat like a guest. He stood near the wall, half in shadow, arms crossed, cape folded around him like a habit. He looked like he was waiting for the room to try something. Aizawa pushed into the room. The door clicked shut behind him. Clark looked up first. His face softened. "Morning," he said. Wayne's head turned slightly. No greeting. Aizawa stood between them, not close enough to threaten, not far enough to look weak. "You're famous," Aizawa said. Clark's brow furrowed. That wasn't the goal. Wayne spoke like he was answering a different question. It never is. Aizawa ignored that for now. "The commission is coming." Clark set the tea down carefully. "I expected that." Wayne's voice stayed flat. "They'll want a leash." Aizawa's scarf shifted, like it could feel his mood. "They'll want answers. And safety. And they'll pretend those are the same thing." Clark's eyes narrowed a little, but he kept his tone calm. "If they're trying to protect people, I can work with that." Wayne let out a short breath through his nose. Not a laugh. Almost. Aizawa looked at Wayne. "And you?" Wayne's head tilted. "If they try to turn him into a weapon, I won't allow it." Clark's gaze flicked to Wayne. A warning and a thank you in one look. Aizawa rubbed his eyes, tired already. "Try to keep it from exploding today." Wayne's answer was simple. Plan for it to explode. That's safer. Aizawa hated how often Wayne sounded correct. The commission team arrived at noon. They came in clean suits with clean shoes and calm smiles that did not reach their eyes. They did not come with anger. They came with permission. The lead agent introduced herself politely. "Fujimi Sato," she said, offering a badge that looked official enough to stop arguments. "Hero Public Safety Commission." All Might stood in the meeting room with Nezu and Aizawa, shoulders broad, smile ready. He looked like the picture on posters. Aizawa could tell he was tense anyway. Clark and Wayne waited at the far end of the room. Clark looked like a visitor who wanted to make a good impression. Wayne looked like a visitor who expected a trap and planned to bite first. Agent Sato's gaze moved over them like she was counting risks. "We appreciate UA's cooperation," she said. "Given recent events, we need to establish an official framework." Nezu's voice was bright. "Frameworks are wonderful. They are also sometimes used to crush things." Agent Sato smiled politely. "We prefer to think of it as structure." Aizawa watched her hands. No shaking, no sweat. Confident. She slid a folder across the table. "Provisional licenses," she said. "Special case. Temporary. Limited jurisdiction." Clark stepped forward slightly. "That sounds reasonable." Wayne did not move. Agent Sato opened the folder. Inside were forms. Many forms. Aizawa almost sighed just seeing them. The running gag of this new nightmare. Paperwork. Clark's eyes scanned the pages. This asks for a legal name and permanent address. Yes, Sato said. Wayne's voice cut in. No. The room went still. Sato turned toward him. Excuse me? Wayne did not raise his voice. He did not need to. I'm not giving my identity to an organization I don't trust. All Might's smile tightened. Now. Aizawa raised a hand, stopping him. He wanted to hear this. Sato's tone stayed polite, but harder. Unregistered individuals operating in public is not acceptable. Clark looked between them. There has to be a middle ground, he said. I can follow rules, but I also can't stand by if people are in danger. Sato nodded like she had expected that. Of course. That's why we're here. Then she tapped a line in the folder. Tracking and response compliance, she read. If you are called to stand down, you stand down. Clark's eyes lifted slowly. Even if someone will die. Sato held his gaze. We will decide the best approach. Wayne's voice was quiet, almost cold. That's what scares me. Aizawa felt a strange twist in his chest. He agreed with Wayne, and he hated agreeing with him. Nezu leaned forward. Agent Sato, he said softly. You understand you are speaking to beings outside your quirk system. Sato's smile did not move. Exactly. That is why the framework matters. She turned to Clark. We can make you a symbol. Public approval. Legal protection. Resources. Clark's face showed a flicker of discomfort. He did not want to be made into anything. He wanted to do good and let that speak. Sato's eyes slid to Wayne. And you, she said, are a clear security threat. You entered this campus without permission. You attacked citizens last night. Wayne's head tilted. Villains. You don't have the legal authority, Sato replied. All Might stepped forward now, voice warm but firm. They saved lives. Sato nodded. Yes, and that is why this is not an arrest. This is an offer. Her words landed like a net. Clark looked down at the papers again. A lot of words, a lot of control. Wayne did not look at the papers at all. Aizawa cleared his throat. If the commission wants to observe them, he said, UA can supervise on campus. For now. Sato's eyes sharpened. Supervision is not enough. Nezu's smile stayed calm. It may be all you get. For a moment, the room felt like it might crack into open conflict. Then Clark spoke, slow and careful. I will cooperate with you. He said. I'll be transparent about what I can do. I'll help with rescue work, training, whatever is safe. Sato's attention locked on him. And the tracking clause. Clark's jaw tightened. I can't promise I will stand down if it means people die. Aizawa saw the truth in that. It wasn't arrogance. It was duty. Sato's smile faded by a fraction. That's troubling. Wayne's voice came again. Get used to troubling. That's what happens when your system meets reality. All Might's laugh boomed suddenly, loud enough to cut the tension. It sounded forced, but it helped anyway. Perhaps we can start with small steps, All Might said. Trust is built, yes? Sato stood. We will continue this discussion, she said. But understand this. If you act without permission and there is damage, the public will demand accountability. Her eyes flicked to Clark, and fear spreads fast. When she left, the room felt colder. Aizawa stared at the closed door for a long moment. Wayne broke the silence first. They're going to push harder. Clark exhaled slowly. I know. All Might's smile softened, and the tired behind it showed. Welcome, he said quietly, to being a symbol in a world that wants to own symbols. Clark turned toward him. You understand, he said. All Might nodded once. Yes, and I made mistakes learning it. Aizawa watched Clark's face. He could see the weight settling there. Wayne's posture didn't change, but his attention sharpened. This was the part he expected, the part where good intentions met politics. Later that evening, All Might asked Clark to walk with him. Not through the main halls, not where students could swarm. Through a quiet corridor that overlooked the training grounds. They stood by a window. Outside, the sun dipped low. The campus lights turned on one by one. All Might folded his arms, looking out. "When I was young," he said, "I believed being the strongest solved most problems." Clark's eyes stayed on the field. "It doesn't?" All Might chuckled softly. "It solves the problem in front of you. It doesn't solve what people do with the story after." Clark's expression tightened. "They're already turning last night into a story." "Yes," All Might said. "Some will say you saved everyone. Some will say you were the reason it became so big." Clark's hands curled slightly, then relaxed. "I didn't ask to come here." All Might's voice lowered. "I didn't ask to become a symbol either, but I accepted it because it gave people hope." Clark looked at him now. "You think I should accept the commission's offer?" All Might shook his head. "I think you should be careful. A cage can be painted gold. It is still a cage." Clark's gaze dropped. "Then what do I do?" All Might smiled. Softer this time, honest. "You keep saving people. You keep your heart clean. And you let good people around you help guard you from being used." Clark's eyes flicked to the shadowed corner of the corridor, where Wayne stood just far enough to pretend he was not listening. All Might noticed too. He did not call him out. He just spoke a little louder. "And you pick allies who tell you hard truths." Wayne's head turned slightly. His face stayed hidden, but the message landed. Clark nodded. Slow. "I can do that." All Might's smile brightened for a moment. "Good." Then his shoulders dropped a little, and the sad behind his eyes returned. "Because this world," All Might said, "will test you in ways strength can't fix." Clark looked back out at the lights. He felt that truth like a stone settling into place. If All Might spoke to Clark about symbols, Aizawa spoke to Wayne about rules. They met in a training room after midnight, because that was when Aizawa had the least patience left for pretending to be polite. Wayne stood near the wall, arms crossed again, cape draped. He was always ready to move, always ready to leave. Aizawa sat on a bench, elbows on knees, eyes tired. "You don't sleep," he said. Wayne's voice was flat. "I do. When needed." Aizawa snorted. "Right." He stared at Wayne for a long moment, then said, "You broke into my school." Wayne didn't deny it. "Yes." "You fought last night." "Yes." "You refused to give your identity." "Yes." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "Why should I allow you here?" Wayne's answer came without pause. "Because I'm useful. Because your enemies will adapt. Because your system has blind spots." Aizawa's scarf twitched. "And you think you don't?" Wayne's head tilted slightly. "I know I do. That's why I plan." Aizawa leaned back, exhaling. "Our society is built on people trusting heroes, trusting licenses, trusting oversight." Wayne's voice was quiet. "Trust can be faked." Aizawa's gaze sharpened. "So can fear." Wayne didn't flinch. "Fear is honest. People fear what can hurt them." Aizawa stood. He stepped closer, stopping just outside Wayne's reach. "You think my rules are chains. I think your methods are a wildfire." Wayne's jaw tightened under the cowl. "And yet, last night, you used my help." Aizawa's eyes hardened. "Because civilians were at risk." Wayne's voice dropped. "And next time? When the commission orders a stand down? When they want to arrest Clark? Are you going to follow rules while people suffer?" Aizawa's throat tightened. He didn't answer right away, because the question hit too close. Wayne kept going, calm but sharp. "I'm not asking you to become me. I'm asking you to admit your world has rot." Aizawa's eyes flicked away for a split second, then back. "It does," he admitted. "And my job is to keep kids alive anyway." Wayne's posture shifted slightly, not softer, but different. "Good." Aizawa crossed his arms. "If you stay, you follow one rule." Wayne waited. Aizawa spoke clearly. "You do not drag students into your war." Wayne's voice was immediate. "Agreed." Aizawa frowned. That was fast. Wayne's head turned toward the door. Because that's a line I don't cross. Aizawa hated how that sounded like the truth. He rubbed his face. Fine, he said. You can assist UA under my observation, not the commission, not the public. Wayne's voice was low. Understood. Aizawa pointed at him. And stop calling Clark a weapon in front of him. Wayne's pause was small. Then, I'll try. That was the closest Wayne got to an apology. Izuku Midoriya carried the whole situation like a buzzing storm in his chest. He was not supposed to know everything. Teachers kept things quiet. Adults used careful words. But Midoriya had eyes, and he had a notebook, and he had a mind that never stopped. He saw the footage. He heard students whispering about the flying guy and the bat guy. He watched how pro-heroes reacted when Clark walked by. He watched how Wayne never let anyone approach from behind. Most of all, he watched how All Might looked at Clark. It was not jealousy, it was recognition. One afternoon, Midoriya found Clark alone near the edge of the training field. Clark stood with his hands behind his back, watching students run drills. He looked like he was watching a world he wanted to understand. Midoriya approached slowly, heart-pounding. "Mr. Clark?" he asked. Clark turned and smiled gently. "Hi," he said. "Midoriya, right?" Midoriya's face lit up. "Yes. You remembered." Clark's smile widened a little. "It's important to remember names." Midoriya swallowed. He held his notebook tight. "Can I ask a question?" Clark nodded. "Sure." Midoriya took a breath. "When Shigaraki put bombs on those people, you didn't hesitate. You saved them and came back so fast." His eyes shined, but fear sat behind them too. How do you decide? If you can do so much, how do you not get angry all the time? Clark's gaze softened. He looked back at the field, where kids trained to be heroes. "I do get angry," he said simply. Midoriya blinked. "You do?" Clark nodded once. "But anger doesn't help people breathe. It doesn't lift rubble. It doesn't stop a fire." He looked down at Midoriya. "I decide based on one thing first. Who needs help right now?" Midoriya's voice came out small. "What about villains?" Clark's answer was careful. "Stopping them matters too. But if I let a person die because I wanted to catch someone, I would be choosing pride over a life." Midoriya felt his throat tighten. He nodded quickly. Clark continued, "Simple and clear. And I have rules. I don't kill. I don't punish. I protect." Midoriya's eyes widened. Even if they deserve it," Clark said gently, finishing the thought. Midoriya looked down. "That's hard." Clark's mouth twitched. "It is." Midoriya hesitated, then asked the question that had been eating him. "Are you scared?" Clark looked up at the sky. For a second, Midoriya thought he would say no, because Clark looked like someone nothing could break. But Clark told the truth. "Yes," he said. Midoriya's chest tightened. "Of what?" Clark's voice stayed calm, but there was weight in it. "I'm scared of being used to hurt people. I'm scared of making things worse by trying to make them better." Midoriya swallowed hard. That fear made sense. It was the kind of fear that came from caring too much. Clark looked back down at him. "But being scared doesn't mean you stop. It means you check your choices." Midoriya nodded, writing that down like it was a treasure. Then Clark's hearing caught something, and his eyes shifted slightly toward the main building. Midoriya noticed. "What is it?" Clark's smile faded. "I think the commission just made another call." Midoriya's stomach dropped. "How do you know?" Clark didn't answer directly. He just said, "Stay with your teachers." Then he moved, and Midoriya felt the air change as Clark crossed the field in an instant. Midoriya stared after him, notebook trembling in his hands. He had never met someone who could do so much and still look like he was trying to be careful. It made Midoriya admire him. And it made Midoriya afraid for him too. All for One did not watch the news like a citizen. He watched it like a hunter. In his hidden room, screens showed different angles of the warehouse fight. He slowed the footage. He studied the blur. He listened to Shigaraki's voice, flat and bored, describing what he saw. "He held the monster," Shigaraki said. He stopped the bombs. He didn't chase when we left. All for One's fingers tapped the arm of his chair. So he has restraint, he murmured. And he cares about being seen as good. He leaned forward slightly. That means he can be forced. Shigaraki's head tilted. Forced into what? All for One's smile grew. Into choices where every option hurts him. He turned a screen to show Clark standing in the bright meeting room, looking at the folder of forms. Your world has a system, All for One said. A legal box. A public story. A chain made of words. Shigaraki looked bored. Words don't stop a fist. All for One's voice stayed patient. Words stop a hero who refuses to be a tyrant. Shigaraki's mouth twisted. So what's the plan? All for One's eyes gleamed behind his mask. We will build a stage, he said. We will put innocent people on it. We will put rules around it. And we will watch which rule he breaks. Shigaraki's smile returned, thin and ugly. That sounds fun. All for One's voice lowered, almost kind. And while the public argues about him, we take what we truly want. He lifted a hand and pointed to another file on the table. A list of facilities, research sites, support tech labs, government storage locations. Power, he whispered. Then he sat back and let the next step unfold. The stage All for One built was not dramatic at first. It looked like normal city trouble. A commuter train had a malfunction on an elevated track. A section of metal snapped loose. The train jerked and slid sideways, wheels grinding. Sparks sprayed. People screamed inside. Below, the street filled with cars. Above, the train hung half off the track, wobbling. The first responders arrived fast. Pro-heroes, too. Rescue crews tried to clear the street. And the commission arrived even faster. They set up barriers. They ordered heroes into assigned zones. And they told Clark to wait. Clark stood on a rooftop a block away with Aizawa and Hawks. His senses heard every voice inside the train. Children, office workers, a pregnant woman breathing fast and trying not to panic. The metal groaned again. Clark's eyes narrowed. He could already see what would happen. The track would bend. The train would drop. People would die. Agent Sato spoke into a comm unit, eyes on Clark. You will remain here, she said. We have professional rescue units in place. Clark's jaw tightened. The track is failing. Sato's tone was clipped. We are aware. Aizawa's eyes flicked to Clark. They want to test you, he said quietly. Hawks's feathers twitched in the air, ready. This feels wrong, Hawks murmured. Clark looked at the train again. Then the metal gave a sudden sharp scream. A single car shifted, dropping another inch. Inside, a child screamed. High and raw. Clark moved. He did not ask. He did not shout. He did not argue. He vanished from the roof. Sato's voice snapped into the comm. Stop. Too late. Clark shot up under the train car and lifted it with both hands, placing his body under a mass of steel like it was a shelf that needed support. The car steadied. The whole train stopped sliding. People inside slammed into seats, then realized they were still alive. Clark looked through the windows, calm face, and spoke loud enough for them to hear. Stay seated, he said. One at a time. We're going to get you out. Rescue crews stared up, shocked. Some cheered. Some just filmed. Aizawa appeared on the track a moment later, scarf snapping, helping guide the evacuation, eyes scanning for villain movement. Hawks hovered nearby, feathers forming a shield in case something exploded. Agent Sato stormed toward the evacuation zone, face tight. He disobeyed an order. She snapped to her team. Record everything. Clark heard that too, and his stomach sank. He kept saving people anyway. Because the child was still crying. Because the pregnant woman was still shaking. Because the track was still bending. When the last passenger stepped onto the safe platform, Clark lifted the whole car back onto the rail with slow, careful strength. He did it so gently the metal did not shriek. Then he floated down to the street. Police and heroes and civilians all stared at him. Agent Sato walked up and held out the same folder again like a weapon. You operated without authorization, she said. Clark's voice stayed steady. People were going to die. Sato's eyes were hard. And now you have proven you will not follow command. Clark's fists clenched once, then relaxed. I will follow good command, he said. I won't follow fear. Sato's smile didn't exist anymore. Fear keeps people safe. Aizawa stepped forward. Fear also makes people do stupid things, he said. Sato ignored him and spoke to Clark. You have two options, she said. Sign the terms, or we treat you as a dangerous vigilante. Clark's chest felt heavy, not because he was threatened physically, because he could feel the public story forming around him, like wet cement. Behind Sato, cameras zoomed in. Clark turned his head slightly. On a nearby rooftop, Wayne stood in shadow, watching the whole scene like it was a crime scene. Wayne's gaze locked on Sato's comm team, on the way they framed the shot, on the way they angled Clark against the flashing lights. Wayne didn't need super hearing to know what they were doing. He lifted a small device and pressed a button. A second later, a hidden drone he'd planted earlier released a feed to Nezu's secure network. It showed something the public cameras had missed. A thin cable on the track, sliced clean. A small support bolt, removed on purpose. A villain's handprint on a maintenance hatch. Sabotage. Aizawa's comm buzzed with Nezu's voice. Calm. Sharp. We have evidence this was staged, Nezu said. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. He looked at the track again, then at Sato. Sato's face did not change. That told Aizawa everything. She didn't care if it was staged. The test still worked. Clark looked at her and realized the same thing. His voice lowered. You wanted this. Sato's eyes stayed steady. We want safety. Wayne's voice came from behind Clark, quiet but clear. You want control. Some heads snapped toward Wayne. Some people stepped back like his shadow could bite. Sato's eyes narrowed. And you, she said, are trespassing. Wayne didn't respond. He didn't need to. He simply stood there, a dark line in the light, making the commission's neat picture messier. Clark turned his head slightly toward Wayne, a silent question. Wayne's answer was in his stillness. Don't sign. Not like this. Clark looked back at Sato. He took a slow breath. I won't be your weapon, Clark said. Gasps rose from the crowd. The words were simple. They hit hard anyway. Sato's jaw tightened. Then we will proceed accordingly. Sirens wailed, not rescue sirens. Official sirens. And in the distance, Midoriya watched from behind a barrier, notebook shaking in his hands. He saw Clark save people. He saw the system try to punish him for it. And he felt something in his chest crack open. The world was bigger than he thought. And uglier, too. That night, the city didn't sleep. It argued. And somewhere in the dark, All for One smiled, because the story was bending the way he wanted. The next move would not be a simple fight. It would be a trap built out of rules, pride, and fear. And it was already closing. Wayne did not wait for the next trap to arrive. He built walls around the future. He called it preparation. Yua called it a problem. Nezu called it interesting. Aizawa called it a headache. It started with a request. Wayne stood in Nezu's office with a thin stack of papers in his hand. That alone was shocking. Wayne holding papers on purpose felt like seeing a shark fill out a form. Nezu looked delighted. Paperwork, he said. You're learning our customs. Wayne's voice was flat. Don't get excited. I need space. Nezu's ears twitched. Space for what? Wayne set the papers on the desk. A simulation room, a secure planning zone, training scenarios, contingency storage. Aizawa, sitting on the couch, groaned. That's 4 requests. Wayne's head turned. It's one project. Nezu flipped through the pages, eyes moving fast. This is very detailed, he said, sounding impressed even as he tried not to show it. Wayne's voice stayed calm. I need to understand how your world works. I need to prepare for your villains adapting. I need to prepare for your government adapting. Aizawa's scarf shifted. You mean, you need to prepare for us? Wayne looked at him. Yes. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. At least you're honest. Nezu's smile grew. We have a training ground, he said. And we have support course labs. but your contingency storage will require. Wayne cut in. Approval. Forms. Budget. Nezu nodded happily. Correct. Wayne stared at him for a long second, then said, Fine. Aizawa leaned forward. If you do this, you do it under supervision, he said. And you do not install anything that can harm students. Wayne's answer came fast. Agreed. Nezu clapped his paws once. Wonderful. I will assign you a partner. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. No. Nezu's smile didn't change. Yes. A door opened, and Mei Hatsume bounced in like a cannonball made of joy. Did someone say partner? She chirped, goggles shining, hair wild. She held up a weird device with blinking lights. I made a baby. Aizawa pinched the bridge of his nose. Wayne stared at the device like it might explode. Mei stepped close to Wayne, peering up at him like he was a rare machine. Oh wow, she breathed. Your suit is amazing. Is that carbon weave? Is that shock absorbent? Do you have internal cooling? Do you have… Wayne took a single step back. No touching. Mei blinked, then grinned wider. He talks. Nezu's voice was sweet. Mei will help with your needs. Wayne's head turned to Nezu. This is a mistake. Nezu's eyes sparkled. Most breakthroughs start as mistakes. Aizawa sighed. Welcome to UA, he muttered. The project began that day. Wayne mapped the campus, the city, the hero agencies, and the villain patterns like he was building a living diagram. He used what UA allowed. He used what he could hide. He never stopped thinking. Mei brought gadgets non-stop. Some were useful, some were terrifying. All were loud. Wayne kept asking for quiet. Mei kept answering with explosions. The forms stacked up. Nezu seemed happier with every page. At one point, Wayne stared at a document titled Provisional Support Equipment Request Special Case and said very quietly, This is war. Mei leaned over his shoulder. Ooh, that one needs 3 stamps. Aizawa walked by and heard it. He didn't laugh, but he almost did. Clark's side quest looked different. He didn't build files. He built trust. Or at least he tried. Nezu assigned him to disaster response practice with UA, staff and local rescue teams. Not flashy hero training, real work. Collapsed building drills, fire response, flood simulations. Clark treated every drill like it was real. He moved rubble carefully. He asked rescue workers what they needed. He learned their hand signals. He followed their evacuation patterns. They did not know what to do with someone who could lift a building and still asked, Is this safe for you? Some of them started to relax around him. Some didn't. Endeavor did not. Endeavor showed up one afternoon during a drill, flames rolling off his shoulders like a warning. He watched Clark move a slab of concrete the size of a truck and set it down with gentle care. Endeavor's eyes narrowed. You like playing rescue worker? Clark turned, calm. I like saving people. Endeavor's jaw tightened. You can do anything. And you choose this. Clark's voice stayed simple. This matters. Endeavor stepped closer. Heat pressed against the air. You're making everyone look small. Endeavor growled. You don't even have a license. Clark met his eyes. I'm not here to compete. Endeavor's fists clenched. Everything is competition. Clark's gaze softened, but his spine stayed straight. Then you're fighting the wrong enemy. Endeavor's flames flared, anger rising. Aizawa appeared between them like he had been waiting in the shadows. Not here, he said, eyes sharp. Endeavor glared at him. You're protecting him. Aizawa's voice was flat. I'm protecting the drill, and the civilians this drill represents. Endeavor's teeth clenched. He turned away, but his words landed like sparks. This world doesn't need a god, he said. It needs order. Clark watched him leave and felt the same heavy feeling return. Power wasn't the problem. People's fear of power was, and fear could be aimed like a weapon. The second big strike came while Wayne was buried in maps and Mei was waving a new baby in his face. It started with a call from Hawks. Hawks landed on the edge of the training ground wall, feathers shifting like he couldn't decide whether to look casual or serious. Aizawa approached him. "What is it?" Hawks' smile was there, but thinner. "We've got a hit," he said. "Not a street fight. A raid." "A raid on what?" Aizawa asked. Hawks' eyes sharpened. "A support tech research site. Official. Quiet. The kind of place the Commission likes to keep boring." Wayne was already there, appearing at Aizawa's side like a shadow that had been listening. "A site that helps control quirks," Wayne said, voice low. Hawks glanced at him. "You're not wrong." Aizawa's stomach tightened. Why would villains hit that? Wayne's answer came immediately. Because villains don't want money. They want advantage. Hawks nodded once. "Exactly, and we think All for One's network is involved." Aizawa's eyes went colder. "Where?" Hawks named the location. Wayne's gaze went distant for a split second, calculating routes. Clark appeared a moment later, walking fast but controlled. He had heard enough. "People inside?" Clark asked. Hawks nodded. "Staff. Security. Some test subjects." Clark's jaw tightened. "Then we go." Aizawa lifted a hand. "Careful," he warned. "This could be another stage." Wayne's voice was quiet. "It is." Clark looked at him. "Then we still go," he said. "We just go smart." Wayne's head tilted slightly, like he approved even if he didn't show it. They moved. Fast. Hawks flew above, guiding. Aizawa traveled by vehicle with a small team. Wayne used his own route. Clark followed, staying high enough not to be seen by every camera, but close enough to act. When they arrived, the research site looked calm from the outside. Too calm. The building was plain. No bright signs, no crowds. A single security guard stood at the front gate. He was standing too still. Wayne's eyes narrowed. "That's not right," he said. Clark's hearing reached in. He heard no heartbeat from the guard. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "Decoy." Hawks's feathers shifted, ready. "We've got movement on the roof," he said. Then the roof exploded inward, not outward, like something had eaten the metal from above. A black shape dropped through the hole. Then another. Then 4 more. They wore tight gear, faces masked, movements fast and silent. Not loud villains, not show-offs. Professional. Wayne's posture changed instantly. "Assassins," he said. Aizawa's eyes locked onto them. "Quirks?" Hawks's feathers flicked out, slicing the air. Some kind of stealth, maybe sound dampening. Wayne's voice stayed calm but sharp. "They're here for something specific, not a smash and grab." Clark's senses caught another thing. Inside the building, people were alive. Heartbeats fast. Panic. And a different sound. A low hum. Machines running. They were already in the lab. Clark looked at the front doors. "I can get inside, and..." Wayne's voice cut in. "If you go in like a missile, you ruin evidence, and you give them the story they want." Clark's jaw tightened. "People are inside." Wayne didn't argue against that. He just shifted tactics. "Then you go in quiet." Clark stared at him for a half-second, then nodded. "Okay," Clark said. "Quiet." That word did not fit him, but he made it fit anyway. Aizawa moved first, scarf snapping, slipping through a side entrance with Hawks covering above. Wayne vanished into the shadow of a service ramp. Clark floated down behind the building, landing without cracking gravel. Inside, the air smelled like clean metal and fear. Aizawa's eyes adjusted fast. He moved through halls with his scarf ready, goggles down. He found the first staff member hiding under a desk, shaking. "It's okay," Aizawa said, voice flat but steady. "Where are they?" The staff member pointed toward the lower labs, mouth trembling. They took Dr. Kinoshita. They asked for the vault." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "Vault of what?" The staff member swallowed. "Quirk factor samples," he whispered. "Support tech prototypes. A catalyst." Aizawa's comm buzzed. Hawks's voice. "Multiple hostiles on level 2. They're moving like they trained for hero response." Wayne's voice slipped into the same comm a moment later, like he had hacked in. They did train for hero response, he said. Watch corners. They set crossfires. Aizawa's jaw tightened. How are you on this channel? Wayne ignored the question. Focus, he said. Aizawa hated it, and he listened anyway. Down in the lower lab, Clark found the vault door ripped open. Not blasted open. Ripped. Metal bent like someone with high strength had peeled it back. Clark's eyes narrowed. Then he heard it. A voice he recognized from the warehouse. Kurogiri. Please be gentle, Kurogiri said politely, mist rolling from his collar. This equipment is delicate. Clark's chest tightened. He stepped forward and stopped. 2 hostages stood in front of the vault, hands up, shaking. Their chests had blinking devices again, smaller this time. Different shape, not bombs like before, but still dangerous. Shigaraki stood behind them, hands in pockets, eyes flat. He looked at Clark like he had been waiting for him. Hi, Shigaraki said, bored. You came. Clark's voice stayed steady. Let them go. Shigaraki shrugged. Depends. Kurogiri's mist swirled around a set of metal cases. Inside, tubes glowed faintly. Wayne's voice in Clark's ear from a tiny comm device May had forced Wayne to wear for testing. Don't let him control the tempo. Clark breathed slowly. He kept his hands open. He did not move too fast. Not yet. Shigaraki nodded toward the cases. We're taking these, he said. Then we leave. Easy. Clark's eyes narrowed. Those samples could hurt people. Shigaraki's mouth twitched. That's the point. Clark's jaw tightened. One hostage sobbed quietly. Shigaraki leaned slightly closer to the hostages without touching them. You're going to do the hero thing again, he said to Clark. You're going to save them. And while you do, we walk away. Clark's voice lowered. You think I can't stop you and save them? Shigaraki's eyes sharpened a fraction. Can you? Clark knew the answer. Yes. He could. But Shigaraki didn't just mean physically. He meant with cameras, with the story, with the commission watching this site like a hawk. If Clark moved wrong, if he scared the hostages, if he grabbed Shigaraki in front of them, if he crushed a wall by accident, it would become another alien out-of-control clip. Shigaraki wanted that. Clark's chest felt heavy with anger again, but he kept his voice calm. I'm not playing your game, he said. Shigaraki smiled, thin. You already are. Upstairs, Wayne moved through a corridor with 2 assassins in front of him and 1 behind. They had sound-dampening gear. They moved like shadows, but Wayne moved like a plan. He flicked a small pellet to the floor. A soft pulse spread out, not a loud explosion. A vibration that messed with their balance for half a second. Half a second was enough. Wayne stepped in, grabbed one wrist, twisted, and pinned the arm behind the attacker's back. He used the attacker's body as cover, blocking a blade from the second attacker. He struck once, then twice. Clean, fast, targeted. The second attacker stumbled. The third attacker behind him swung. Wayne dropped, rolled, and kicked the attacker's knee sideways, taking the leg out without breaking it. He didn't want a murder scene. He wanted information. The attackers recovered quickly. Too quickly. Not normal thugs. Wayne's eyes narrowed. Commission trained, he muttered. He didn't have proof yet, but the way they moved, it felt like people taught to fight inside hero rules. He slammed a small disc onto the wall. It beeped once, then projected a short field that disrupted their comms. The attackers' headsets crackled. Wayne used that moment to vanish into a side room, pulling the door closed. He heard them searching, silent and angry. Wayne's gaze flicked to the room's monitors. He saw footage of the lower lab. He saw Clark standing calm while Shigaraki smiled. Wayne's jaw tightened. He saw Kurogiri's cases. He saw labels on the cases. Quirk factor catalyst. Stability trial. Wayne's eyes went cold. This wasn't just theft. This was mass production. He keyed into the comm. Aizawa, he said. They're after a catalyst. If they get it out, they can build more Nomu or worse. Aizawa's voice came back tight. Understood. Where are you? Wayne didn't answer that. He never did. Get to the lower labs. Wayne said. Now. Aizawa cursed quietly and moved faster. In the lower lab, Clark made his choice. He didn't do the dramatic thing. He did the careful thing. His heat vision flicked on, thin as a needle, so fine it didn't even glow red in the room. He cut the straps on the hostages' devices in a line so precise the fabric fell away without touching skin. The devices dropped. Clark's hand snapped down and crushed both devices in one squeeze. The hostages gasped, then stumbled backward. Shigaraki's eyes widened for the first time. Not fear. Surprise. Clark moved in the same motion, stepping forward and placing his body between Shigaraki and the cases. No, Clark said. Shigaraki's smile returned, sharper. There it is. Kurogiri's mist surged, trying to wrap around the cases like a net. Clark's hand snapped out and grabbed the nearest case. Kurogiri's mist tried to pull it through a portal. Clark held on. The case strained against two forces, a space warp pull and a grip that did not let go. The metal handle started to bend. Clark's eyes narrowed. He did not want to rip it apart and spill unknown chemicals. He shifted his grip, careful, and lifted the entire case slightly, countering the portal pull by changing the angle. Kurogiri's polite tone cracked. Please, he said, strained. Let go. Shigaraki stepped forward, fingers flexing. Clark's eyes locked on Shigaraki's hands. Shigaraki's quirk was touch, decay. Clark didn't know the details, but he knew enough. Don't let him touch you. And don't let him touch the case. Aizawa burst into the lab doorway then, scarf snapping, eyes glowing with erasure. Shigaraki froze mid-step, his quirk shut off for the moment. Clark felt relief for half a second. Then he remembered. Erasure didn't work on Clark, but it worked on Shigaraki. Good. Hawks dropped from above, feathers slicing toward Kurogiri's portal edges to disrupt his line. Wayne appeared behind the group like he had stepped out of the wall itself. He threw a small device. It stuck near Kurogiri and emitted a steady pulse. Kurogiri's mist wavered. Not gone, but unstable. Kurogiri's voice sharpened. Interference, he said. Wayne's voice was low. You're welcome. Shigaraki's eyes flicked to Wayne, then to Aizawa. He smiled again, calm, like he still wasn't worried. Good teamwork, Shigaraki said. Too bad you can't be everywhere. He stomped his foot. A hidden charge in the ceiling popped, not a giant blast, just enough to break pipes and drop dust and sparks. Sprinklers burst to life, spraying water in a hard sheet. Visibility dropped. Chaos rose. Kurogiri's mist swelled, using the water and steam to spread. Shigaraki stepped back, slipping into the cover. Aizawa's eyes watered from the sudden spray, and he had to blink. That was all Shigaraki needed. His quirk snapped back on for a heartbeat. He touched the floor. A line of decay raced outward like rot spreading through paper, cracking tile and concrete, threatening the lab supports. Clark reacted instantly. He flew up, grabbed a falling beam, and braced the ceiling with his body, stopping the collapse from crushing everyone. He could have chased Shigaraki, but the building was going to come down. People were still inside. And that, again, was the choice Shigaraki built. Wayne's eyes tracked the mist, searching for the exit point. He lunged toward a shadow that wasn't quite right. His hand grabbed cloth. Mist swallowed the figure. Kurogiri's portal snapped open at the far end. Shigaraki's voice floated back, amused. Thanks for the samples. Wayne's jaw clenched. We held the case. Shigaraki laughed once, dry. Not all of them. The portal closed. Silence slammed down. Sprinklers still sprayed. The floor was cracked. Clark held the ceiling like a human pillar, eyes focused, calm. Aizawa wiped water from his face, furious. Hawks hovered, feathers shaking. They got away, he said. Wayne's eyes were locked on the empty space where the portal had been. They got something, he corrected. Nezu's voice came through the comm, calm and sharp as ever. Report. Aizawa spoke first. They targeted the vault, he said. They used hostages. Again. Wayne's voice cut in. They took a portion of the catalyst. Not all, but enough to scale. There was a pause. Then Nezu said softly, So it begins. Outside, sirens rose as police and commission units arrived. And here, too, cameras were waiting. Agent Sato stepped into the ruined lab, eyes moving fast. She saw the damage. She saw the sprinklers. She saw Clark holding the ceiling like it was a shelf, her gaze fixed on him. "Stand down," she said. Clark's voice stayed calm. "If I stand down, the ceiling drops." Sato's jaw tightened. "Our teams will handle it." Clark's eyes narrowed. "Your teams aren't under it." That line hit like a slap, because it was true. Sato's face cooled. "You are making this harder." Wayne stepped forward slightly. "No," he said. "You are." Sato turned to him, eyes sharp. "And you are still trespassing." Wayne's voice was flat. "Then arrest me after we stop the war. You're pretending isn't happening." Sato's stare hardened. "Watch your tone." Wayne didn't blink. "Watch your priorities." Aizawa stepped between them, exhausted. "Enough," he snapped. "We stabilize the building first." Clark kept holding the ceiling until engineers braced it with support beams. When he finally stepped back, the floor creaked in relief. He looked at the cracked lab, the shaken staff, the cameras, the commission agents, and he felt the weight again. He saved people, and still the system looked at him like a problem. Wayne stood beside him, cape still, body tense. May's voice crackled into Wayne's calm suddenly, loud and excited. "Did you use my pulse disruptor, baby? Did it work? Tell me it worked." Wayne closed his eyes for 1 second. Clark glanced at him, confused. Wayne muttered, barely audible, "This is my punishment." Clark almost smiled. Almost. Aizawa heard it and, despite everything, let out a tired breath that was close to a laugh. Then his phone buzzed with a new alert. A new incident. Different location. Same pattern. Aizawa's eyes went cold. "They're hitting multiple sites," he said. Hawks's feathers stiffened. "At once?" Wayne's voice was quiet. A flood. Clark's heart sank. He could move fast. He could save a lot of people. But if the enemy attacked everywhere at once, the real limit wasn't his strength. It was time. And time was the one thing even he couldn't stretch forever. Wayne looked at Clark and spoke low. Meant only for him. "This is what I warned you about," he said. "You can't be everywhere." Clark's voice was steady but heavy. "Then we build a team that can." Wayne's mouth tightened. "Then we build a plan that can." Aizawa stepped closer, eyes sharp. "Then we stop fighting each other," he said. They didn't agree on everything. They didn't trust each other fully. But the city was burning in pieces now, and someone was lighting the matches on purpose. Somewhere far away, All for One watched the early reports roll in. He didn't need to win today. He just needed the world to realize one simple truth. Even a man who can lift a train can't hold an entire city alone. And once people believed that, they would start asking who should be allowed to try. Weeks passed, and the city did not calm down. It just learned how to live with the new shape of fear. On U.A. grounds, the routine tried to act normal. Students still ran drills, teachers still yelled, lunch still happened on schedule. But now, every time Clark walked across campus, heads turned. He did not wear his blue suit. Nezu asked him not to, at least for now. Cameras outside the gates were hungry, and the commission was even hungrier. Clark wore simple clothes U.A. gave him. Plain jacket, plain shoes. It did not matter. He still moved like someone who could cross the world in a breath. Some students whispered names anyway. Sky Guy. Alien Hero. Is he the one who lifted the train? Midoriya tried not to stare. He failed every time. Clark's days filled with rescue training and real rescue calls. Small ones. A kid stuck on a balcony during a fire. A sinkhole that opened under a bus. A building crane that snapped in high wind. Clark did not treat any of them like small. He showed up, checked for people first, and fixed the danger second. He asked rescue workers what they needed. He listened. Sometimes they asked him for photos. Sometimes they asked him if he was legal. And every week, a new stack of forms appeared in Nezu's office, delivered like a threat wrapped in polite paper. Nezu always looked delighted anyway. More forms, Nezu chirped one morning, pushing a pile toward Clark. They have included a section for power classification. How thoughtful. Clark stared at the page. It had boxes, lots of boxes. Aizawa stood nearby with a coffee that did nothing for his mood. They want a number, Aizawa said flatly, so they can pretend they understand you. Clark's eyes moved over the questions. Maximum lifting capacity. Maximum speed? Known weaknesses? Clark exhaled slowly. If I fill this out honestly, he said, they'll use it. If you don't, Aizawa replied, they'll say you're hiding something. Nezu's smile stayed sweet. The fun of bureaucracy is that it punishes you for breathing. From the doorway, Wayne watched without speaking. He held his own stack of forms in one hand like it was a contaminated object. Mei Hatsume bounced behind him, wearing goggles and carrying a metal case like it was a pet. I added a stamp launcher, Mei announced. Now you can stamp forms from across the room. You don't even have to touch them. Wayne's head turned slowly. Why, he said, voice flat. Would I want to stamp more forms faster? Mei beamed. Because then you can do more hero stuff. Wayne looked at the stamp launcher like it was a personal insult. Clark almost smiled. Almost. Wayne did not let himself smile, but his shoulders shifted like he was doing battle with the urge to throw the whole case out a window. That was the new normal, too. Clark saving lives. Wayne building plans. And paperwork multiplying like a villain with a cloning quirk. Wayne's plans had become a full project. Nezu gave him a secure training room on campus with strict rules and strict supervision. Wayne followed the rules exactly, in the way that made it clear he did not like them. He built a map of Musutafu in layers, hero routes, emergency response time, known villain patterns, places with high civilian risk, places the Commission watched heavily. He ran drills with pro heroes and staff, not students. He kept the promise he made to Aizawa. He trained Aizawa, Hawks, and a small set of trusted pros in things quirks could not solve alone. How to read a crowd before it turned into panic. How to spot a trap inside a rescue call. How to move in a hallway where a portal could open anywhere. Hawks hated how useful it was. This feels like cheating, Hawks muttered after one drill, feathers still floating around him. Wayne's voice was calm. It's preparation. Aizawa wiped sweat from his brow. Call it whatever you want. It keeps people alive. Even Endeavor got pulled into one session, because Nezu insisted. Endeavor showed up like he was doing everyone a favor. Wayne didn't argue with him. Wayne didn't care about his pride. Wayne simply set up a scenario where smoke hid civilians, where heat made walls weak, where the villain used hostages and cameras. Endeavor failed the first run. Not because he wasn't strong, because he couldn't stand losing control. When the drill ended, Endeavor's flames flickered hotter, anger leaking out. Wayne stood still, watching him. You want to beat everyone, Wayne said. That's not the same as saving everyone. Endeavor's eyes burned. And you want to control everyone, he snapped. You're not better. Wayne's answer was simple. No, I'm just honest about the risk. Aizawa ended the session before it became a real fight. But the words stayed. They stayed in Endeavor's head. They stayed in Clark's head too, because Clark heard everything, even when he wasn't there. That was another problem. Clark couldn't stop hearing the world. He could only decide what to carry. At night, Clark stood on U.A.'s roof sometimes, looking out at city lights. He could hear sirens far away. He could hear people laughing in apartments. He could hear the worry under it all. He missed home. He missed a world where people knew what Superman meant. Here, he was still just Clark, a stranger with no proper label. And labels mattered here more than they should. The Commission knew that. That was why Agent Sato returned, not in a crisis, but in daylight, with a smile and an offer. They met in a conference room at U.A. Again. Same bright lights, same folder. This time, the folder was thicker. Nezu sat with calm eyes. Aizawa stood like a guard. All Might sat too, posture strong but with a quiet tired in his shoulders. Clark sat because he wanted to show respect, even though he didn't need to. Wayne did not sit. He never did. Sato opened the folder. "We have revised the terms," she said. "A special status, a public title, a legal shield. You will be protected." Clark's eyes narrowed. "And in return?" Sato tapped the page. "Tracking, response compliance, and a communication chain. You will not act without clearance in major incidents." Clark's voice stayed calm. "People don't wait for clearance when they're under rubble." Sato's smile stayed polite. "The system does." Wayne's voice cut in. "Your system is slow. That's why villains are winning." Sato's eyes slid to him. "And you," she said, "are still operating illegally." Wayne didn't blink. "Correct." Sato's smile sharpened. "Then we will offer you something as well." That surprised Clark. Even Nezu's ears twitched. Sato turned one page. "Consultant role," she said. "Off book. Covert support. You will assist our operations discreetly. In exchange, we ignore certain past actions." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "You're asking him to be your shadow." Sato didn't deny it. "We require effective tools." Wayne's voice was quiet. "Tools get used." Sato leaned forward slightly. "We need someone who can do what heroes won't do." All Might's smile faded. "That is not hero work," he said softly. Sato's gaze stayed steady. "That is safety work." Wayne looked at the folder, then looked at Sato. "No," he said. "Just one word." Sato's smile tightened. "You refuse?" Wayne's voice stayed even. "I don't work for people who hide behind safety to justify cruelty." Sato's eyes cooled. She turned back to Clark, like Wayne was a problem to solve later. "And you," she said, "could become the greatest symbol this world has ever seen. But symbols must be stable." Clark's hands curled once, then relaxed. "A symbol isn't stable if it only exists when the government approves." Sato's voice hardened. "If you refuse, the public will fear you." Clark's eyes lifted. "Some already do." Sato nodded. "And fear spreads." Nezu leaned forward, voice sweet. "Hope spreads too." Sato's gaze flicked to Nezu, then back to Clark. "This is your last chance before we take stronger action," she said. Clark felt the room tighten around that sentence. All Might watched him with a quiet sadness, like he had heard this kind of threat before. Wayne's posture didn't change, but Clark could feel his anger like heat in the air. Clark took a slow breath. He did not want war with the Commission. He also would not sign away people's lives. "I won't be owned," Clark said, simple and clear. Sato's smile vanished. "Then we will act as necessary." When she left, the room stayed silent for a long time. All Might spoke first, voice low. "She will push," he said. "And the villains will push too." Aizawa rubbed his face. "Great. Two enemies who both think they're the good guys." Wayne's voice was quiet. "That's when the city gets hurt." Nezu's eyes gleamed. "Then we must make it harder for them to lie." Clark looked down at his hands. He could lift a mountain, but he couldn't lift a whole system out of its own fear. He looked up at All Might. "How did you keep going?" he asked. All Might's smile returned, small and real. "I didn't do it alone," he said. Clark glanced at Aizawa, at Nezu, at Wayne, who looked like he hated the idea of together, but stayed anyway. Clark nodded once. "Then neither will I." All for One chose that night to speak. Not through a screen, not through a rumor. He spoke through Kurogiri, because All for One liked sending messages like a hand reaching out from the dark. It happened at the edge of the city, in a quiet industrial zone where cameras were scarce and streets were empty. Wayne insisted on coming. He didn't trust invitations. Aizawa came too, because he didn't trust Wayne alone with anything. Clark came because he didn't trust the world to handle what might happen if he didn't. Kurogiri stood beneath a flickering streetlight like a polite waiter waiting for an order. "Good evening," Kurogiri said. "My master wishes to offer a conversation." Wayne's voice was cold. "He can offer it to a wall." Kurogiri's mist swirled calmly. "He prefers you hear it." Clark stepped forward, hands open. "What does he want?" he asked. Kurogiri tilted his head. "He wants you to understand," he said. A deeper voice flowed out through the mist, smooth and calm, like oil on water. "Clark," All for One said, without ever showing his face. Clark's spine stiffened. The villain knew his name. Of course he did. All for One continued, voice gentle like a teacher. "You came to a world that fears you. You saved them anyway. And now they threaten you for it." Wayne's jaw tightened. "Say your point," he snapped. All for One chuckled softly. "My point is simple. You and I see the same rot." Aizawa's eyes narrowed. "You are the rot. All rot grows in a place where people pretend nothing is wrong," All for One replied calmly. Clark's voice stayed steady. "What do you want from me?" All for One's tone warmed. "A choice," he said. "I can end this for you." Clark's chest tightened. "How?" Kurogiri's mist opened slightly, and inside it, for a moment, Clark saw a room of machines and tubes and stolen power. All for One's voice flowed on. "This world has a system that chains heroes. It will chain you. It will chain your friend in the dark suit too. But I can cut those chains." Wayne's voice went colder. "By making new chains." All for One didn't deny it. "By replacing weak hands with strong ones." Clark's eyes narrowed. "You want me to rule." All for One's voice became almost kind. "I want you to stop pretending this world can be saved by kindness alone," he said. "You are a god here, Clark. Use it." Clark's jaw clenched. He felt anger flare sharp, hot, dangerous. Then he remembered the child screaming on the train, the hostages shaking in the lab, the way Midoriya's eyes looked when he asked how to stay good. Clark breathed out slowly. "I'm not a god," Clark said. "And even if I was, I wouldn't be yours." All for One's tone stayed calm. "Then you will suffer," he said softly. "They will paint you as a monster. They will force you to choose between law and life, again and again." Wayne stepped forward. "We're done," he said. Kurogiri's mist swirled. "Very well." All for One's voice lowered, almost a whisper. "Tomorrow, there will be a summit," he said. "A public stage. The commission will declare new restrictions. And then, something will happen." Aizawa's eyes went cold. "A threat. A promise," All for One corrected gently. Clark's voice tightened. "If you hurt people," All for One cut in, still calm. "You will save them," he said. "That is what you do." And then the mist pulled back, and Kurogiri stepped into a portal and vanished like smoke being sucked away. The streetlight flickered over empty air. Wayne's voice was tight. "He's forcing the moment," he said. Aizawa's scarf twitched. "We can't stop us, something will happen." Clark stared at the dark space where the portal had been. "We can be there," he said. Wayne's head turned toward him. "And we can control the story," Wayne said, voice hard. "Or it controls you." Clark nodded once. "Then let's plan." The summit took place in a wide public hall near the center of Musutafu. It was the kind of building that loved cameras, wide steps, bright banners, big screens. The commission wanted the city to see order being made. Nezu let you, attend officially. Aizawa came with staff. All Might came because the public trusted him. Clark and Wayne came because they had to. Clark wore plain clothes again. Wayne wore his suit because he refused to pretend. Outside the hall, barricades held back crowds. News drones hovered like insects. Agent Sato stood on the stage with other officials. She spoke into microphones with perfect calm. "We face a new era of threats," she said. "Villains adapt, anomalies appear. Therefore, we will implement new emergency controls." On the big screen behind her, words appeared. Emergency response chain. Restricted hero operations. Unregistered actors subject to detention. The crowd murmured. Clark stood near the back, watching, hearing every breath. Wayne stood a few steps behind him, eyes on exits, cameras, rooftops. Aizawa's voice was low. "This is their stage," he muttered. All Might's smile looked strained. "And we are the props," he said quietly. Sato's eyes swept the hall and landed on Clark, as if she wanted everyone to notice. "This includes," Sato said, "non-registered individuals operating in public." Cameras turned. Clark felt hundreds of eyes press onto him. He did not flinch. Sato continued, voice firm. We will offer a final legal status to cooperate. Those who refuse will be treated as threats. The hall tightened with tension. Then the lights flickered. Wayne's head snapped up. Clark's hearing caught it first. A steady hum. Not normal building power. Something new. Then a scream from outside. A blast shook the front steps. Not huge, but enough to send people stumbling and shouting. Smoke rolled into the hall. And through the smoke, a shape dropped from above. A Nomu. Not the same as before. This one moved smarter. Its muscles were tight and ready. Its eyes tracked targets, not just noise. Behind it, more shapes appeared through mist portals, opening in the air like holes in reality. Kurogiri and Shigaraki, hands in pockets, smiling like he owned the night. The hall erupted in panic. People ran, cameras stayed. Some people did both at once. Sato's voice snapped into a calm. Lock the hall. Containment. Clark moved forward, and Sato shouted loud enough for microphones to catch. Stand down. The words blasted across the speakers. The crowd heard it. The cameras heard it. Shigaraki laughed softly. There it is, he said, eyes on Clark. The chain. Clark stopped for half a breath. If he disobeyed now, the commission would use it forever. If he obeyed, people would die. Wayne's voice came low in Clark's ear. Save them, Wayne said. I'll break their story. Clark's jaw tightened. He moved. Not like a rebel, like a rescue worker. He shot toward the falling ceiling chunk that the first blast had loosened, caught it, and placed it down away from the crowd. He moved people out of the path of the Nomu with gentle pushes, like guiding kids away from a street. The Nomu lunged at a cluster of officials. All Might surged forward, but he was slower than he used to be, and the Nomu was faster than the old ones. Clark stepped in and caught the Nomu's arm before it hit. The impact made the air pop. The floor cracked. Clark didn't move. The Nomu snarled. Clark turned his head slightly, eyes calm. Back, he said. The Nomu didn't understand words, but it understood force. It tried to swing again. Clark twisted the arm, controlled, and pinned the Nomu's wrist to the ground without breaking it. He pressed down just enough to stop it. Shigaraki's eyes narrowed. Still holding back, he said, almost annoyed. Aizawa launched his scarf toward Shigaraki, eyes glowing with erasure. Shigaraki's quirk shut off. For a moment, he looked irritated. Hawks swooped low, feathers grabbing civilians and pulling them out like a living rescue net. Endeavor blasted flames toward the mist portals, trying to close the space. Kurogiri adjusted, portals shifting away from the heat. Wayne moved through the chaos like a shadow with a purpose. He didn't fight the Nomu. That was Clark's job. Wayne hunted the source of the hum. He found it near the stage, behind a panel. A device wired into the building's speakers and screens. A broadcast hijack. All for One didn't just want death. He wanted a message. Wayne ripped the panel open, hands fast, and saw a second device. A small quirk catalyst amplifier, humming like a heart. It was boosting the Nomu's stability, making it smarter, making it last longer. Wayne's jaw clenched. Found it, he muttered. May's baby pulse disruptor sat in Wayne's belt like a secret joke. Wayne pulled it out and slammed it onto the amplifier. It pulsed. The hum stuttered. The Nomu's movement faltered for half a second, like it forgot what it was doing. That half second mattered. Clark used it to lift the Nomu straight up, carry it through a hole in the roof, and launch it into the empty air above the city high enough that when it fell, it would land in an empty construction pit Wayne had already flagged as a safe drop zone weeks ago. Clark returned before anyone could even shout his name. But the microphones caught what mattered. They caught Sato's order. They caught Clark's disobedience. They caught the crowd cheering anyway when they realized they were alive. Sato's face tightened on stage. "Detain him," she snapped into her calm. Wayne heard it. Aizawa heard it. Clark heard it too. And then Wayne did what he promised. He broke their story. He triggered a data burst through Nezu's secure network and into every news drone that had been sniffing for signals. On the big screen behind the stage, Sato's clean presentation vanished. New footage appeared. A close-up of the train sabotage cable, sliced. A hand removing a bolt. A masked courier delivering forms while slipping a bribe into a pocket. A commission agent meeting a villain contact in a back alley. It wasn't every person in the commission, but it was enough. The hall went dead silent for a heartbeat, the panic pausing in shock. Sato spun toward the screen, face changing for the first time. "Cut that feed." Wayne's voice came through the hall speakers, rough and calm. "Your chain is compromised," Wayne said, "and you know it." People stared around, trying to find the voice. Wayne stepped into view near the stage lights, not hiding at all now. He looked like a nightmare in armor, and he sounded like a judge. "You want to call him a threat?" Wayne said, pointing toward Clark. "But you used him as bait. You let a trap happen to test obedience." Gasps rose. Angry shouts followed. Sato's eyes burned. "This is misinformation." Nezu's calm voice slipped into the feed too, bright and sharp. "It is not," Nezu said. "It is evidence." All Might stepped forward, the symbol of peace standing in the middle of the mess. He looked at the crowd, then at Clark, and All Might spoke into the microphones with a smile that was tired but real. "That man," All Might said, "saved you." The crowd's noise swelled. Not all of it was praise, but enough was. Shigaraki watched, eyes cold. His plan wasn't going the way he wanted. The story was slipping. He clicked his tongue. "Fine," he muttered. He stepped forward, quirk still suppressed by Aizawa, and threw a handful of dust and debris toward Aizawa's face to force a blink. Aizawa flinched, and the blink broke erasure for a split second. Shigaraki's fingers snapped out. Clark moved instantly, grabbing Shigaraki's wrist before it touched anyone. The room felt like it froze. Clark held the wrist like he was holding a live wire. Shigaraki smiled up at him. "You can't keep grabbing hands forever," he whispered. Clark's eyes narrowed. "Watch me." For a half second, Clark could have ended it. He could have crushed bone. He could have flown Shigaraki into the sky and dropped him in a prison yard like a package. But he didn't. He twisted the wrist, controlled, and pinned Shigaraki to the floor hard enough to stop him, not hard enough to break him. Wayne was already moving toward Kurogiri, trying to stop the portal escape. Hawks's feathers shot toward the mist edges. Endeavor blasted heat again. Kurogiri wavered, but he was still a doorway, and doorways were hard to punch. A new portal opened behind Shigaraki's head. All for One's voice flowed out, smooth and amused. "Excellent performance," he said. Clark's stomach tightened. Kurogiri's mist surged around Shigaraki and pulled. Clark held on. The pull was strong, like space itself tugging. Clark dug his boots into the floor, cracking tile. For a moment, it became a test of physics. Then Clark heard the crowd behind him, still screaming, still running. He felt the ceiling above, still damaged. He knew if he fought the portal too long, the hall could collapse in panic. So Clark made a choice that hurt. He let go. Shigaraki vanished into the mist with a grin like he'd won a prize. Kurogiri followed. The portals snapped shut. The hall didn't collapse. People didn't die. But the villains escaped again, carrying the promise that this wasn't over. In the aftermath, the noise didn't fade. It changed shape. Officials shouted. Civilians yelled questions. News drones zoomed in on Clark and Wayne like they were the only things in the world. Sato stood on stage, face tight, and realized she had lost control of the room. Not because a villain beat her, because the truth beat her. Clark stepped forward into the light, breathing steady, eyes on the crowd. He heard someone shout, "What do we even call you?" Clark's throat tightened. He had tried to stay just Clark. But a name could be a shield, too. A name could stop other people from writing the story for you. He looked at All Might, who gave him a small nod. Clark faced the cameras. "My name is Clark," he said. "I'm not from this world. I'm here because people needed help." He paused, then said the word he had carried for years like a promise. "You can call me Superman." The crowd reacted like a wave hitting a wall. Some cheered. Some gasped. Some scoffed. Wayne stood behind him, silent, and did not look surprised. Clark had finally claimed his own label. A reporter shouted, "And him? The one in black?" Wayne didn't step forward. He didn't want the light. But he understood how stories work too. He turned his head slightly, voice rough. "Call me Batman," he said. 2 simple names. 2 lines drawn in the public mind. Sato's voice cut in, sharp. "They are still unlicensed." All Might stepped forward again, smile brightening, voice strong enough to cut through the noise. "Then maybe," All Might said. "Our system needs to learn what a hero looks like without permission." That line hit the crowd like thunder. Not everyone agreed, but everyone heard it, and that mattered. Later, in a quieter room away from cameras, the commission tried one last time to regain control. Sato sat across from Nezu, Aizawa, All Might, Clark, and Batman. Her face was controlled again, but her hands were tighter. "You forced our hand," she said. Nezu's smile was calm. "No," he replied. "You forced yours." Sato looked at Clark. "We cannot allow you to act freely," she said. "It is too dangerous." Clark's voice stayed steady. "I won't act recklessly," he said, "but I will act." Sato's eyes hardened. "Under whose authority?" Clark glanced at Aizawa, at Nezu, at All Might. Then he spoke clearly. "You, A," he said, "in rescue and emergency response, with coordination, not control." Sato's jaw tightened. "And the tracking?" Clark shook his head once. "No." Batman spoke for the first time in the room, voice low. "If you try to chain him again, you will push him into becoming the thing you fear." Sato's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" Batman's answer was flat. "It's a warning." All Might leaned forward, voice gentle but strong. "He is not your enemy," he told Sato, "and neither is Batman. Your enemy is the people who want to break hope." Sato held their gaze for a long moment. Outside this room, the public story was already shifting. The summit footage had spread. The evidence had spread. The commission could not pretend it had full control anymore. Finally, Sato spoke through clenched patience. "Provisional cooperation," she said. "Limited. Emergency only. No independent patrols." Clark nodded once. "Emergency only," he agreed, because saving lives was the point. Batman didn't nod. He didn't need to. He had never asked permission to stop evil. Sato stood. "This is not over," she said. Nezu smiled sweetly. "No," he agreed. "It is beginning." When she left, the room breathed again. Aizawa rubbed his eyes, exhausted. "So we're now running a rescue program for an alien and a bat," he muttered. Batman's voice was flat. "Don't call me a bat." Aizawa stared at him, "Then stop dressing like one." Clark's mouth twitched. "Please don't fight," he said softly, and that made Aizawa sigh even harder, because Clark sounded like a tired parent. All Might stood and placed a huge hand on Clark's shoulder. "You chose well," All Might said quietly. "You did not take the easy road. You took the right one." Clark looked at him, emotion tight in his chest. "I'm trying," he said. All Might's smile warmed. "So am I." Batman turned toward the door. "We're not finished," he said. Clark nodded. "I know." Outside, the city lights blinked like they always did. And somewhere in the dark, All for One smiled, because even a partial win gave him new angles. He didn't get Superman. He didn't break the story fully. But he learned something important. Superman had lines. Batman had leverage. And the system had cracks that could still be widened. The war had not ended. It had just taken a clearer shape. Night settled over you, A, like a blanket. Most students slept. The halls went quiet. The campus lights hummed softly. Clark stood alone at Training Ground Beta, looking at a damaged wall from an earlier drill. It wasn't urgent. It didn't need him. He fixed it anyway. He lifted broken concrete blocks and stacked them neatly. He welded cracked metal supports with a thin line of heat vision, careful not to scorch anything around it. He worked slow, like he was trying to feel normal again. Behind him, Batman appeared without a sound. Clark didn't jump. He had heard him coming. He just didn't say it out loud. Batman held a folder under one arm. Thick, heavy. "More forms?" Clark asked lightly. Batman's voice was flat. "Worse." Clark turned and saw the cover. Contingencies, MHA. Clark's smile faded. "That's a lot." Batman's answer was simple. "It has to be." Clark looked down at the repaired wall. "Do you ever get tired of planning for disaster?" he asked. Batman's head tilted slightly. "Do you ever get tired of catching it?" Clark didn't answer right away. He just kept placing the last block into place, straight and clean. Footsteps approached from the edge of the field. Midoriya stood there, clutching his notebook like always. He looked like he had been trying to decide whether to come closer for 5 full minutes. Clark softened. "You should be asleep," Clark said. Midoriya rubbed the back of his head. "I know," he said, embarrassed. "But I couldn't stop thinking." Batman's gaze flicked over him, then away. He didn't like kids being near his world, but this kid was already in it. Midoriya stepped forward a little. "You said your name today," he said to Clark. "Superman." Clark nodded once. "Yeah." Midoriya's eyes shined, then tightened with worry. "They still argued about you after," he said. "Even after you saved them." Clark's chest felt heavy again. "People argue when they're scared," he said gently. Midoriya swallowed. "So, how do you stay good?" he asked, voice small. "When you could do anything?" Clark stared at him for a long moment. Then he answered in the simplest way he could. "You decide what kind of person you want to be," Clark said, "and you choose that again every day, even when it's hard." Midoriya's throat bobbed. "What if people hate you anyway?" he asked. Clark's eyes softened. "Then you still choose it," he said. "Because saving people isn't a trade, it's a duty." Batman's voice joined in, low and rough. "And you don't do it for applause," he added. "You do it because it's right." Midoriya looked between them, like he was seeing 2 different kinds of strength. Then he looked down at Batman's folder. "Is that plans for everyone?" he asked. Batman hesitated. Then he turned the folder slightly, so Midoriya could see a new page tucked near the front. It wasn't a list of weaknesses. It wasn't a weapon diagram. It was a single handwritten line, rough and simple. "Trust builds." Midoriya blinked, surprised. Clark noticed too. He looked at Batman, eyebrows lifting. Batman's voice was flat, almost annoyed. "Don't make a big deal out of it." Clark let out a quiet breath that was almost a laugh. "I won't," he said. Midoriya smiled, small but real. Far away, sirens wailed in the city, faint and distant, normal trouble, normal danger. Clark looked toward the lights beyond the campus. "This world keeps going," he said softly. Midoriya nodded. "Yeah," he whispered. Batman's cape shifted as he turned too, eyes on the horizon like it was an enemy he didn't trust. Clark's voice stayed calm. "Then we keep going too. And under the quiet lights." With a repaired wall behind them and a city full of fear ahead of them, the new story settled into place. Not finished, just different now,